In my first year of creating content, I posted over 100 videos over 3 niches and gained a mere 1,000 followers. In my second year, I gained 120,000. I've turned this into a full-time job where I charge 5 figures for brand deals, travel the world, and get to inspire millions. All because I mastered one skill. The one part of content that ties everything together and brings out your unique voice: editing. You see, good editing isn't just about VFX and flashy transitions. That's the exact mindset that kept me under 1,000 followers and burned me out. I only blew up once I realized that good editing is about amplifying your story. It's about making technical decisions like music, shot selection, and VFX to evoke an emotion. And if you're still confused, don't worry. I spent hundreds of hours reflecting on my own 2-year journey to break this down into a simple framework called the scene formula. A 5-step formula that won't teach you how to edit like me, but will teach you how to edit like the best version of yourself and build a lucrative career out of it. In this video, I'll be walking through every step of the formula to provide you with a clear roadmap on how to master this infinitely leveraged skill of video editing. But first, let me take you back 2 years to March 2023. I was feeling so burnt out from working on the tech startup that I co-founded, and so I left. But it was in that period of hopelessness that I discovered content creation. Now, I knew absolutely nothing about filming, editing, scripting, so I started with what was just trending at the time: street interviews. I did this for about 4 months, posted over 80 videos, and gained just 100 followers. Worst of all, I was embarrassed by the content that I was making. Something needed to change, and it was just around that time that I discovered a creator named Adrian Purr. This guy was bringing filmmaking to short-form content. And watching his videos made me feel emotions that my videos would never be able to evoke. His videos made me feel inspired. And from that moment, I decided I didn't want to just become a content creator. I wanted to become a filmmaker. But I knew nothing about filmmaking, so I started with what was the most obvious and visible: editing. I wanted to learn fancy editing in an effort to make my videos feel more premium. And after a few months, I felt like I got pretty good. And my videos had flashier editing than the stuff going viral, but I still wasn't seeing the results. I spent 20 hours on a video just to get 1,000 views and 10 followers. And from watching my videos, I knew that something was missing, but I couldn't tell what it was. At this point, it had been 1 year of creating content, and I burned through so much of my savings, and I had nothing to show for it. And I felt so frustrated about not knowing what I was doing wrong, and I was about to quit, but that was when I got the text that changed everything. A friend gave me some really harsh but needed feedback. He told me that I've obviously mastered my editing software and could do some fancy tricks, but my storytelling was terrible. The videos I was editing weren't evoking any emotions. It was just empty calories. And this really struck a chord with me because it captured this general feeling and insecurity that I had, but couldn't quite articulate. And so I started binging resources on storytelling. Books, YouTube videos, podcasts. I started journaling every day, reading every day. And whenever I did consume stories in the form of fiction or movies or content, I really paid attention to why I was hooked. I finally started to understand this very nebulous concept of storytelling, and just 4 months later, I started to see some initial success. In July of 2024, I had my first video hit 1 million views, I hit 10,000 followers, and I signed my first brand deal. I doubled down on what was working, and that's when things really blew up. Today, less than 1 year after I hit 10,000 followers, I'm now at 120,000. I'm able to fully support myself through content, and most importantly, I have a voice. Throughout my entire life, I've always been that shy, quiet kid who could never speak up in class or in group settings, a kid who always felt invisible. But now I have a platform where I can finally say something, say it with conviction, and actually make a difference. I've never felt more fulfilled in my life, and I get to wake up every day knowing that I am working on exactly what I'm meant to do. All because I learned how to tell stories. But here's what most people get wrong about storytelling. Storytelling doesn't just apply to scripting. Yes, the script lays the foundation of your video, but editing is what brings it to life. Editing is an emotion multiplier. So what really broke me through is a combination of 1, learning storytelling, and 2, building on top of that to become a one-of-a-kind editor. Someone with a unique editing style that brands are willing to pay top dollar to hire because no one else can edit like I can. Now, I'm not saying I'm the best editor in the world because that is highly subjective, but I am the best at editing videos in my unique style. There's a very systematic way to developing your own unique editing style and building a career out of it. And that is the SCENE formula, which stands for story, craft, efficiency, niche, and exposure. Now let's go through each of these steps one by one. First up, we have story. As I've been drilling into you over and over by this point, a video is just a powerfully packaged story. And so in order to be a great editor, you have to understand the basics of storytelling. Now, there are countless storytelling frameworks, but today I'm just gonna give you 3. Now, the first one is the 3-act structure, also known as beginning, middle, and end. Every story that you tell should follow this general format. Act 1 is giving context, Act 2 is the conflict, and Act 3 is the resolution. This is the structure that applies from every story ranging from 45-second reels to 2-hour-long movies. Now, for the second framework, the audience should always be curious but never confused. So let's start with that second part, never confused. Whatever information you want to convey to the audience, make sure you convey it well. Use clear visuals and clear, simple language, but that doesn't mean you should convey all of the information. And a key component of storytelling is deciding which information to withhold. And that brings me to the first part, curious. You want to be creating curiosity gaps. That means just raising questions in the viewer's mind, creating a gap between what they know and what they want to know. And if the viewer constantly has these unanswered questions in their mind, that is what's gonna keep them sticking around for the video. But you wanna be careful about not introducing too many curiosity gaps, because then that's too much for the viewer to keep track of. You don't want them to be confused. Now, the third and final framework that we'll talk about is the but therefore framework. This was coined by the creators of South Park. Basically, if you write out all the events of your story, and the natural transition word between all of these events is the word and, then you have a boring story. There's no contrast, there's no conflict. But if the natural transition word between these events is the word but, then you have a more engaging story. You have more of a roller coaster. Here's an example. We all love music because it can turn any boring moment into a freaking movie. But you end up turning every boring moment into a movie. Okay, so that's story. Now we're moving on to the second step of the SCENE formula, craft. In this step, you want to master the foundations of editing and understand how they impact story. Now there's a ton of different elements to editing, but really at a high level, it can be broken down into 3 categories: sound, visuals, and rhythm. Let's talk about sound first. Sound can be further broken down into sound effects, music, and dialogue. Let's just focus on music. Music is the most important part of your video. It's what sets the emotion and the pacing. So you want to be very intentional about choosing music and cutting it. Now, whenever I need to choose a song for a video, I first start by identifying the emotion I want to convey. And I'll literally write this down in Notion. Then I'll go through my Spotify playlist of cinematic music and just skip through songs until I find a song that matches that emotion I'm trying to convey. If I find that song, I'll add it to another playlist where I keep a running list of potential songs for this current project. I also might right-click on a song to go to that song's radio so I can further explore music in that similar genre. After I have a good list of potential songs, I'll narrow that list down to 2 to 3, and then the best way to make that final decision on which song to use is to actually download the songs, import it into the timeline, and see how it actually matches up with the visuals. And that's a good transition into the second category of editing, which is visuals. Now, as humans, we are very visual creatures, and we process visuals faster than we process sound. So visuals are a very effective way to convey information to the audience. If you're talking about how you enjoy dancing, show a clip of you dancing. If you're talking about how the average home price in America is growing exponentially, show a graph. And as you get better at editing, you'll also develop a better eye for visuals. What is good lighting? What is a good composition and framing? And that will make you better at the filming process as well. Now, the third category of editing is rhythm. How can you keep the viewer engaged? Simply by the pace in which you make cuts. Now think about a drummer, right? A drummer can take you on a very strong emotional arc. They can get you really hooked into the story that they're telling using the most basic primitive instruments, just a drum and 2 sticks. And that is purely based off of rhythm. And so you want to apply this same principle to your editing. You want to be making faster cuts when you're trying to build anticipation in very intense moments. And you want to be making longer cuts when it's time to slow down and really sit in the moment. Okay, so that covers step 2, craft. Next, we're moving on to step 3, efficiency, which just means becoming a faster editor without sacrificing quality. Now, this is really important because you want to minimize the amount of friction between you having an idea and being able to put it out into the world. This makes you more willing to actually work on these great ideas when you have them, and it prevents burnout. The less energy you spend on menial tasks like finding footage or setting your font size, the more energy you can dedicate towards creativity. And to be an efficient editor, you have to really master your editing software, learn the hotkeys, and you have to be organized. So the first thing I'll start with is just digital organization. Create a system for how you organize your projects and footage. Everyone's gonna have a different system for them, but if you don't know where to start, this is how I do it. The next step to becoming a more efficient editor is you want to create templates. Identify these menial tasks that you're doing over and over and find a way to templatize them, make them automatic. The easiest win that you can make right now is creating a template project for your editing software. So I use DaVinci Resolve. Whenever I start a new project, I do not start a project from scratch. Instead, I duplicate my template project, rename it following my naming convention, and start working off of that. Now, why do I do that? If we look into my template project, there's a few things already set up. One is the project settings. I don't want to be setting this up every single time. Another is the bin structure and my timeline structure. And I also have this timeline called Toolbox, where all of my commonly used items are already available for me to copy and paste. The text I use with the correct font and size and glow and other settings. Commonly used B-roll and sound effects. All of these little things that I don't need to be setting up every single time. Okay, so that covers efficiency. Moving on to step 4, niche. Now, I don't mean niche in the sense of only creating one type of content. I mean niche in the sense of developing your own unique editing style. The way that I develop my style is through a framework that I coined called the Triple R framework. And that stands for reference, recreate, and reflect. At any point, I have a maximum of 3 hero artists. The 3 artists that most inspire me and the first people I go to for inspiration. Now, the first R stands for reference. When I'm looking to be inspired, I'll look through one of my hero artist videos, and I'll find their best videos. Best in the sense of performance, but also best in terms of what speaks to me the most. The second R stands for recreate. I'll recreate this video or a certain part of it, a certain effect in my own style. And the third R stands for reflect. I'll reflect on how this video performed, but more importantly, I'll reflect on how this video feels. Does this feel like me? Is this an element that I want to add to my toolbox? And by doing this process over and over, you will expand your toolbox, your vocabulary, and you will pick and choose the elements that you want to keep and make a part of your style. The other framework I'll mention is the Scamper framework. This is relevant for step 2, the recreate part. If you don't know how to recreate a video in your own style, just use one of these methods. All right, so that's step 4, niche. Now we're moving on to the 5th and final step of the scene formula, exposure. You could be the best editor in the world, but it doesn't mean shit if no one's watching your videos. Now, there's a lot of different ways of getting exposure and getting paid your worth as an editor, but by far the most effective way is by posting on social media, specifically Instagram. This is the quickest way that you can build a personal brand, which is the most valuable asset that you can own today. Now, there's a lot that goes into building a personal brand and growing on social media, but the one advice I'll leave you with today is you should create an ideal viewer persona. You want to think of one very specific person that you are creating content for. And typically, the best ideal viewer persona, or IVP, is you from the past. Maybe 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. Think about a version of you that was really struggling, had a lot of pain points and desires, and could use a lot of help. Now, you want to write down who your IVP is. Get very specific. Add a picture. Talk about their interests, where they live, how they spend their time, their desires, their limiting beliefs. And you want to think about how you can help them. This is how you'll grow on social media, because you will create content that is super relatable for this one specific persona. And there will be millions of people out there who match this exact persona. And the algorithm has a scary way of serving your content to those people. Okay, so that's the scene formula. Hopefully by now you understand that mastering editing is pretty straightforward, but that doesn't mean it's easy. This still will require a ton of hours and consistency, and there will be a lot of second guessing and self-doubt and experimenting, and there will be a lot of isolation. Editing is a very lonely art form. I spend hundreds of hours just in my room staring at my laptop. And when I first started, I so desperately wanted more structured learning, feedback, and community. And that is exactly why I created Sequence. Sequence is a live 6-week bootcamp where I teach you how to master editing and turn it into a lucrative career. Think of this as an accelerator for content creation and editing. There'll be 12 live sessions led by me. Each week, I'll be going deep into each step of the scene formula. There'll also be time for Q&A. I'll be breaking down my past viral videos. I'll also be doing live feedback sessions for community submitted videos. There'll be weekly exercises to practice the concepts I teach you, and I'll be providing drive folders with sample footage so you won't get overwhelmed and can focus on just the editing if you choose. There'll also be a private Discord community where you can get feedback on videos, ask questions, and connect with other cohort members. I will be personally checking this Discord multiple times a day to answer any questions you have and provide feedback on videos. And lastly, I will be giving you all of the tools and templates and resources that I use in my own editing and content creation workflow. I'm talking music libraries, sound effect libraries, visual libraries, my project templates, project hotkeys, over 30 templates and systems that you can steal so you can focus on just the creative work. Listen, video editing has changed my life. It has given this quiet kid a voice. It is the most highly leveraged skill today. And I want to take everything I've learned in the past 2 years of mistakes and banging my head against the wall and condense it into this well-structured 6-week program that I am pouring my all into. Because I care about editing and I care about teaching, and I want to help other people find their voice. And so if you're truly serious about taking your editing to the next level, building a strong brand, and changing your life, it is up to you to take action. Join today, and I'll see you in week 1.